Yeah.
First set of used for Harry Tinknell.
He's on his second stint at the moment, and he is 12 laps into that, so expect another couple of laps before they will switch in there. But the Ford team are switching a little bit of strategy. First set of used. I don't know exactly which ones he was on at the moment, but presume he's been double stinting these tyres, just looking at the lap times drop off between the first and the second stint.
Less than 16 hours to go. That was Alan McNish. I'm Jim Roller, along with Peter Dumbreck. Hi, Betty. See you Tuesday.
Is that Betty there? Is that what you call Mr. Collado?
Yeah.
Betty Collado.
Betty Collado. That's James Collado. What's it like when you're suited and booted and waiting for your car to come in? What's running through your mind?
Focus. Just, you know, you can't wait to just get in the car, and you know, you've been waiting around, and you know, it's time to go. Let's just go. And yeah, you're counting it down. You're watching where the car is on the lap. You might have another 1 or 2 to go, but you're ready just in case. You know, quite often the possibility of the car having a problem on its last lap or second last lap, you've got to be ready anyway. And yeah, it's just a case of waiting and, you know, focus. Right, I've got to do a good job here. It's going to be his first laps in the dark conditions as well, obviously after the qualifying, but the race situation is different, so he's gone in for a stint, or a double stint at least. And yeah, he'll be like, okay, you know, I've got to do everything like I did in the light conditions. I've got to do it in the dark now, and it's always a little bit harder doing that. I mean, it's quite well lit round here in general, but you know, there's still something to think about.
When you say about it's quite well lit, Ryan Cullen, who is in one of the United Autosport cars, it's his first time here, and he did Daytona for the first time earlier on in the year, and his first laps in the dark here on Wednesday night, I received a text message from him. He said, "This is dark." In comparison to Daytona, which is a bowl and hyper lit and everything else, this is dark.
Well, if he was in the car next week at Nürburgring, he really would know what dark is.
There's Tinknell just pulling out the slipstream of Puer Guidi.
He's suddenly got some speed from him, hasn't he?
Did he make it into the corner, though? That's the question. Nope.
No, he didn't.
No, he didn't. Had to back out of it. So Puer Guidi still holding on to that third place. Garcia just sneaking away a tad as well.
Let's check back in on pit road, where we've got Louise standing by in the G-Force.
Yes, Job van Aert is one of our 33 rookies taking part in this Le Mans. Firstly, how are you enjoying it so far?
Le Mans is great. It's a race on its own. It's great to see so many people there as well, but yeah, I'm now really looking forward to start driving in the dark.
You've got a great battle going on with Signatech 36.
Yeah, it's super tight in LMP2 field. With my stint, I had a great fight together with Lapierre and Thierry. Yeah, it was just superb driving from both the other drivers, and I'm just happy. But it's still a long way to go. I think like 16 hours still on the clock, so anything can happen.
Last year, you were becoming European Le Mans LMP3 champion. Could you have imagined you'd be here battling against the likes of Lapierre and everybody else out there?
I could not have imagined it, but I could only have dreamed it. And if you keep dreaming, sometimes dreams come true.
Good words. See you out there.
Thank you very much.
Confident young lad. You know, he was here at the box, wasn't he, a couple of days ago? And I actually didn't know who he was. I just had a brief chat with him. He seemed nice fella, nice and relaxed. And now I know how old he is as well. It's like, wow, fair play, lad.
Talking of another youngster that is confident, but he's certainly having to make up for his little shunt earlier on. Thomas Laurent in the pits in the Rebellion, 5th overall. A couple of cars that are coming to the pits on this lap are going to be the 67 of Tinknell in the Ford GT in 4th place, Puer Guidi in the Ferrari as well.
1 minute stop and go penalty now for the number 49. That's the ARC Bratislava car. Trishenko behind the wheel, Konstantin Trishenko behind the wheel of that car. So a 1 minute. You were telling me earlier, Alan, what it's like to sit there for a minute. He's going to get that experience now. Here come the 3rd and 4th place cars in our GTE Pro category. Henry Tinknell leading Alessandro Pierguidi into the pits. Tinknell hits his marks and the crew goes to work.
Yeah, used tyres going on that car. We heard the engineer saying he was switching strategy and putting on the first set. He used a driver change though here. So that is something that will, new tyres going on the Ferrari. So used on the Ford, new on the Ferrari. So the Ford guys will want to try and get out and be able to use Tinknell's advantage of having already driven in the dark, as now he's on his way to try to take advantage, and he's made the jump. In fact, he is ahead.
Big style.
It's a huge style.
Another car with a 1 minute stop and go penalty, the number 70. That's the MR Racing. Ishikawa behind the wheel of that Ferrari number 70. And we've had a driver change in here as well as Jamie Campbell-Walter.
Evening. How are you?
You put some warmer clothes on just like I did, didn't you?
I have, and I've had some food.
Ooh,
I feel
good for
full
you.
up. I've got a full tank. And,
All right, ready to go.
Ready to go. What's happened?
Well, it's pretty much status quo. We've got 2 Toyotas out front, chased by the 2 SMPs and the 2 Rebellions. Then in LMP2, you've got the 26 and 36 G-Drive and Signatech and Dragon Speed still together. 10-second penalty added to the next pit stop for the 28 car for not respecting the slow zone procedure. That's the 7th place car, the TDS Racing entry, 7th place in the LMP2 category. Then down in GTE Pro, well, they're just a big clump of cars out there running around together. They've spread out a little bit, as you would expect them to do in the nighttime. And in fact, it looks like, am I reading that right, Alan, that Estra and Garcia have put a lap on?
No,
they're just on the tail end of the lead. Okay,
yes,
just waiting for scoring
so
to click
basically
over.
you've got Estra, who's still out there. Garcia didn't pit. Tinknell and Guidi pitted, which has dropped them down, and the BMW is in the box. This is the 81 BMW. They've been out of it for a little while. Philip Eng was at the wheel of that car, and there's a little bit on the left front. Is that the car that crashed in practice?
I believe
with,
it is, yes.
Nicky Katzberg at the
Yes.
wheel coming into the Ford Chicane in front of us.
Yes. So that car's been in the pits now for about 2.5 minutes. Stefan Sarazan, 43-year-old. Be very popular if that man could win the 24 Hours of Le Mans. He's quite popular in the paddock and on the grid.
Tell you what, there was a period when he was racing for Peugeot where it was him and I duking it out for pole position every single blooming year. And tell you what, he was super
hard man,
quick.
isn't he?
He was super quick.
Yeah.
Change of front bumper there for the 93, is it?
Yep. 94
94
front balance change. Saw these guys practicing splitter changes and everything in the run-up during the days. This is the 94 car, driver change here.
So there you go. You see them quick release steering change, and he can adjust the height and the length, which is a new thing from when I last drove them.
Well, when I last drove a Porsche, I had a booster seat that pushed me all the way forward. There wasn't any of that fancy stuff.
But I think the pedals also move.
Yes, the pedals do, yeah. Pedal works.
Jaminet out and Sven Muller in the car. This is kind of the Porsche Junior car, isn't it? These are the young guys.
I hear that Marcel Fassler got taken off to hospital for just a precautionary
Yeah, that's
check.
CT
CT scan, apparently.
Yeah, that's what Feehan said. They'd probably take him for.
Apparently he's okay. He was
just
walking
precautionary.
Around.
Yep.
Yeah. Good to hear he's okay.
Yep. Kaz Nakajima in the pits in the number 8 car. He'll switch over for Sebastian Buemi. Now Buemi, in fact, you and I were together this morning in the morning warm-up, Jamie, and we heard Buemi talking on the radio about how he thought this car was going to be fantastic at night. And we also heard on the radio before the end of yours and my last stint talking about what sounded a lot like team orders for the Toyotas.
Yeah, it did.
Marie Lopez apologizing for passing, and the engineer for the 8 car coming on and telling Nakajima not to worry, they'll fix it later.
Yeah, it's a strange recall that they were definitely, the 8 car was definitely, well, I'll call it cruising, but it's not cruising literally, but he wasn't taking any risk. You could see that. And Lopez just got lucky with some traffic and snuck by. And then we suddenly got that radio message, which, yeah, maybe they're just sort of saying, hey guys, we don't want you to fight too hard, you know? So just hold position for now.
Yeah, I think the Lopez car here, which is now leading due to the pit stop, it struggled with a few things. It's not exactly at the front grip and being able to hook up, so it's been using a little bit more energy per lap to be able to try to do the same lap time. So it's a real tricky thing now with the hybrid and a limitation of energy on every lap. So if you don't carry the momentum through the apex, then you need more energy to accelerate the car down the next straight, which then to get your lap, you need to recuperate more energy, which means you have to lift and brake earlier. And that was one thing that seemed to be hampering the balance of that car at the beginning, but it's equaled itself out a little bit more.
How difficult was it to alter your driving style for that when the hybrid technology came along, Alan?
It was a mentality shift as much as anything else. It was looking at how you made speed around the circuit, and it wasn't always in the obvious areas. There was times, and Kota was a race where I remember very strongly that when you lifted off in the high-speed straights, especially up into turn 1, you gained more acceleration out to the next corner because you recuperated so much energy than you did by keeping it flat out to the braking point. So mentally, you were lifting off and cruising into the corner instead of braking right at the last minute, and you just basically boosted out the corner so much more. So that took a bit of a mentality shift, and then we started looking at the whole process of where we could be making the time with the technology we've got. Now you've got massive accelerations for halfway down the straight, and then after that, then they basically have got less power and then more lift-off, so therefore they're slower at the end of the straight than they are in the middle, which is a completely contrary to the way that,
exactly.
you know, that Jamie and I grew up with. You floored it from the moment you came out the corner to the last second, being the last of the late breakers.
Threshold braking. Yeah.
It's the way of the hybrid way, isn't it? We see it in F1 and Formula E as well.
Yeah, but let's be clear about this, because we could say, oh, well, that's not how the purest how we drive.
No,
just remember when, you know, paddle shift gearboxes came in, then it changed the way the driving style was. Just remember when you stopped having to heel and toe. Just remember when wings came on the cars and it had downforce. It changed the way you made speed around about a circuit as a racing driver. But the best drivers still won. They still were able to adapt. So from my point of view, it's not better or worse, it's just different. And some people will attune to it a little bit easier than others, but in overall terms, the best always rise to the top.
92 car, our leader in the GTE Pro category. Kevin Estre comes in. Michael Christensen will take over that car. Saw him get in from the onboard camera.
We'll see the real gap in a minute after this stop.
Christensen back out onto the racetrack. 9th pit stop for these cars now, compared to 11 and 12 for our 2 Toyotas. There's Mike Conway standing by, waiting for Lopez to come in the number 7 Toyota. What a show Mike put on in the first 3 stints of the race in that number 7 car.
He was mighty, wasn't he?
He had no problem making power.
No, and so he hasn't been back in the car since the start.
Right.
So this will be his first laps in the dark. Takes him a couple of laps to adjust to that, your night vision. And then it'll be interesting to see how because he was definitely the quickest driver in that car so far. So it'll be interesting to see how he gets on.
When you've been out of the car for a while, Alan, and you get back in like this after your co-drivers have triple stinted, so you've been out for about 5 hours perhaps, has the car changed much?
Well, it depends if they've hit anything. Well, but if they haven't hit anything,
all things being equal.
No, usually it's the circuit that changes.
Okay.
The circuit characteristics change with the temperature, not the ambient, but the track temperature, and then how the tires are with it, and you know, if somebody's been off or whatever it may be. But we're on board with Lopez Pachito coming down into Porsche curves. I would suspect he's going to be coming into the pits this lap. Conway there stretching ready. He's done 10 laps and this is his 11th now as he comes through the left-hander at karting. And then we'll pop into the pits for driver change.
Every time I see that bollard that's on driver's left when they come through there, I think that's a piece of debris, but that's the
Yep.
3 sausage curbs and the bollard there to keep people from cutting the racetrack. Here comes the number 7. He'll keep it in the gas until you see those 2 panels there. That's the line that you have to be down to 60 kilometers an hour, which is even slower than the full course yellow speed. There's the trophy as he goes under it, hoping that he'll be able to enjoy it. Here comes Mike Conway, not really in a hurry. He'll slide in. Nakajima goes back into the pits. The days of the drivers sticking around and helping and briefing the other driver are long gone now, aren't they?
Yeah, but the cockpits are so small, and they've also got the headrests on both sides. The driver can't move or see anything, so he can't put his head down because of the hand system, and therefore he can't move to the left or right because of the head restraints. And so therefore you do need a driver help, and that driver helper's got a hell of a job. So he's got to thread his head through there. He gets bruised and bumped, and he's trying to, it's, you know. Oh, as one of the Fords runs wide in front of the Buemi car coming through the chicane.
7 car comes out of the pits right now. And Buemi will probably, not get by. But he's on.
Oh, it's a bit of a squeeze there.
Yeah, really.
That's the second place, Nicolas Lapierre. In the second place, LMP2 there was caught up in the battle, so that's Pachito. Well, in fact, it's not. It's Mike Conway in his first laps in the dark up ahead of us, and Sebastian Buemi, who has already been out for a few laps. He's been out for 2 laps right behind.
So his tires are hotted up just nice, and he's gonna think he'll make it, take a shot here or not.
Well, it's more the fact that his eyes are attuned to where the braking points are and things like that than necessarily tired, because the tires are all preheated. Got a slightly different pressure rise up from it. So this first part up into the first chicane, you've got to be a little bit careful. But I don't think there'll be any attack between the sister cars. I think they're kind of under a little bit of caution there. And they can rightly be, because they're well over a lap ahead.
One thing that does change, of course, for the drivers is the circuit, as Alan said, and it's mostly the pickup as well, offline.
Sure.
And that does increases obviously throughout the race. Corners like the first chicane on the Mulsanne straight and the second one, there's certain places in the track where cars go round the outside, like we see at the right-hander of the Porsche curves, so that stays clean. Whereas the first chicane on the Mulsanne there, no one goes out on the outside, so it gets very dirty as the race goes on, especially in the morning. So that's something that the drivers have to just find their way and just check little things like that.
Yeah, you can see some of it there on the entrance to Mulsanne.
Yeah, he saw a little bit. It looked like spray was coming off the back of the lead Toyota there. It's more a case of the dust and everything else. I've seen that right from the start, and in the first laps of the race I thought, crikey, there's brake dust or something coming off. But I think there's a lot of pollen around about here.
Oh yeah, and yes there is.
Yeah, you know, by the fact that anybody with allergies, if they come to Le Mans, then bring your antihistamines, because there's a lot of pollen, and that also has an effect on the circuit.
Sudafed is my friend.
Other antihistamines are available.
He just did it again.
Yeah, there is also the exhaust gases that they are.
Yeah, I
love more a case of the.
Love these pictures at night. There's something evocative about race cars tails away, and you see a lot more of that at night because of the headlights blinding the cameras. So the digital cameras handle the headlights a lot better than the old cameras do. But these are just beautiful pictures.
When the rear brake lights there are flashing, That's them lifting off. That's regen, and then they go solid when he hits the brakes. Yeah.
It's just so you get a bit of a heads up when the car's lifting in it. It's mainly, as that's John Steegs, the team manager at Toyota. Now, John was involved in their Formula One program. I worked with him there in the past, and also their Rally and Le Mans program. So he's been a stalwart of Toyota back in the days of Ove Anderson. There's a bit of a lock-up as the rear was bouncing, coming down into Arnage corner for Conway. And obviously getting a bit of push on here because he's pulled a second gap over Buemi.
Conway only seems to have one speed.
Well, I'll tell you what, it's a very quick speed.
Yeah.
When I'm looking at it today, Mike Conway's speed is a very quick speed.
What did we call it the other day? WFO?
He took a bit of time to get into it, though, didn't he, in the very beginning? But now he seems to be mighty in the car.
On board with Sebastian Buemi. He chases Mike Conway down the Mulsanne straightaway.
Be interesting to see now the top speeds of these two cars, because they've both had a clean run out of Tete Rouge.
That was a funny one because they were talking, Alonso was saying earlier on, they've struggled with straight line speed as well.
3:10 for the number 7 and 3:12.7 for the number 8 car.
Pretty similar.
There's the Dragon Speed entry, LMP1 entry in the pits, and it's a bad day for Dragon Speed because their team manager for their 3rd place in LMP2 car has been asked to go to the race control immediately. Never rains, but it pours.
Yeah. Don't pass go. Don't collect
obviously.
any money. Just get your butt to Eduardo's office.
There we had Jean-Eric Verne going through the shot, the first car in there. Leader of LMP2 being overtaken and lapped again by the leader of LMP1.
Verne, as he was earlier, is chased by the Signatech Alpine of Nicolas Lapierre. Dragon Speed number 3 with Roberto Gonzalez behind the wheel is in 3rd place. Those 3 have pretty much dominated, and then they've been chased by the 2 Jackie Chan entries, the number 38 and the 37. So those 5 have pretty much dominated the entire run. Paul Di Resta is in 6th place in the number 22 United Autosports entry.
Yeah, here's Verne. And a slow Ferrari there on the right-hand side. I'm not sure if he's trying to get out of the way.
Looked like he was trying.
Of gaggle of cars, or actually has got a problem. It's a white flag there fluttering on the right-hand side, being flown for something, a slow car.
On board with the Toyota here into the Porsche curves. Phenomenal, the lighting power of these lights now on these cars. I mean, it's almost like daylight.
Also the line they can take through there, Jamie, because we used to have to always hook to the right-hand side or to the middle before when they're going through the right, then switching into left to try to get the left sorted out. But they're able to use all of the road on the right and still have the downforce and capability to get to the left.
Yeah, flat out through the left, and
both lefts.
Both lefts. and they just turn in from the middle of the road.
Yeah.
So it's looks easy.
How much aiming is there with these lights? Are they just so bright that it doesn't really matter? Because I can remember my rallying days in the early 80s, we would spend a lot of time the night before the rally aiming the lights so that you have, you know, one that gives you the tree line, one that gives you the side road and that sort of stuff.
Yeah, this spread is so wide nowadays, and it's also pre-tuned, so you don't sort of do it like you used to up against something. And funnily enough, Sebring was worse for getting the lights arranged. But not so much because of the bumps, Jim, but because of the width, like down at turn 10, to make sure you had enough toe out in the right-hand light, so you had very different separation left and right. We used to have adaptive lights here, so that when you were turning into a left-hand corner, the lights didn't move with you, but the amount of power going through one or the other changed, and it illuminated the corner in a different way. It was pretty cool technology we had on the lights. We went into a lot of detail on it, but we had to, because over the time that I was racing at Le Mans, we were going through the Porsche curves at 50 kilometers an hour quicker than we were when I started. So when you're attacking the corners much quicker, you need better lights or younger eyes, and my eyes weren't getting any younger.
So they obviously went with better light.
Well, yes, we had some pretty neat stuff there, as I said.
When you guys brought out the LEDs, I thought you did portable sun.
LEDs, and then we went to laser lights at the end. Laser lights in 2013, end of 13, beginning of 14. They were incredible.
So still, that message has been left on the screen for a long time. Team manager to car 31. Nothing in the bulletins yet.
It's I think it's a report to the headmaster's office. And hasn't got his lines yet.
There we go, entrance to the Porsche curves.
SMP car just coming through. That's the third place Stefan Sarazan that we see there, just eking round the outside into karting.
That is
impressive lap from the Menezes there, 3:20.9. Not the quickest, but quicker on this particular lap than the two Toyotas, obviously because of traffic and stuff.
Yeah, Gustavo Menezes was pushing on earlier on. Which Ferrari is that? Number 71.
Comes in from 9th place. Sam Bird comes in the SMP AF Corsa.
Yeah, still staying in the car.
Yep, no driver change here. Sam will stay in. Double stint the tires and the driver. Will we see quadruple stints at night?
I think
for the drivers,
if you can in some categories, then I would think in LMP2, yes, you will.
Yeah.
They can make it. I think it's a little bit unlikely in a GT car, in all honesty. You'll definitely see it for the drivers in the LMP1s. They're already doing that right from the word go. But in an LMP2 car, we have to remember a stint length is about 33, 34 minutes. So it's just over 2 hours. It's not really that difficult.
What did you guys do? Did you do 4 or 5 the year you schnookered?
We did 5. We did minimums of 4 and then went on to 5. So we did what we called a double-double. So you do 2 sets on a, 2 stints on a new tire, then driver stayed in 2 stints on a new tire and went through the system like that. But that was when you were up to about 3 hours. On the 4 stints, you would run 3 hours.
Yeah.
And the longest I've ever done here was 3 hours and 50 minutes or something like that, which was a long time in the wet in 08. That felt like about 34 hours.
In 2013, I did 11 hours and 58 minutes of the race.
It's very greedy.
Yeah.
Well, like your teammates. You've got teammates, you know,
yes.
Jamie.
But unfortunately, that was the year that sadly Alan Simonson left us, and one of my teammates didn't radio.
Okay, Michael, I'm not too concerned about fuel at the moment. Your fuel is good. Just keep the rhythm like this. We would definitely need a full course yellow or something else to get the extra laps, but the more margin we build, the better. So just continue like this. I'm very happy with it. Just keep me updated with the pace. Yeah, I will.
So their fuel mileage, they're concerned about apparently, that they might have to make an extra pit stop.
No, not really. They're trying to get to an extra lap. And if they can't make the lap, there's no point making, for them, they're doing 15 laps. There's no point making 15.7 laps.
Right, exactly.
You're better just to give it everything to pull a gap and then do 15, because you're going to do 15 anyway.
Yeah.
And so from that point of view, it's just a case of, look, you know, go for it. And we need something outside assistance to bring us into doing that extra lap. And what he's talking about is the fact that behind him, 9 seconds behind, you've got Collado in the Ferrari, and then directly behind him, in fact 0.2 of a second behind, you've got Tinto still in the Ford. So that Ferrari Ford battle from 1969 is still continuing in 2019. It's just that now they've got the Porsche up ahead of them as well.
You guys are talking about drive time. This, of course, is the anniversary of 1949 when Ferrari won its first race in the first race after the war. And in that race, Luigi Chinetti and his co-driver got sick, and Luigi Chinetti drove 23 of the 24 hours.
Wow.
So you're talking about 11.5 hours, Jamie.
You soft shite.
Well, no, I was fine. It was just that one of my teammates obviously didn't take it so well, and his wife also didn't want him to drive too much. So someone had to step up, and the engineer decided it was me, which was fine. And actually, in that race, I preferred to be in the car than out of the car, because there was a lot of emotion outside of the car.
Block everything out.
I found it much easier in the car because I could just focus on what I had to do and deal with everything else when I was out. So, yeah.
15.5 hours remaining. Fireworks going off around the circuit, and fireworks on the circuit, as we have got fantastic racing here at the 87th running of the great race, the 24 Hours of Le Mans. Your leader is Mike Conway in the Toyota number 7. He's being chased by Sebastian Buemi in the Toyota number 8, who we are on board with right now. There you see Conway just a few tenths off in the distance. Then comes the 2 SMP entries, the number 17 and 11, being driven by Stefan Sarazan and Vitaly Petrov, respectively. Oh, the 84 is off the racetrack. That's the JMW Motorsport Ferrari. Lou behind the wheel, yellow flag.
Second in class as well.
Second in class. Chasing down the Keating Motorsports car. Jerome Bleekemolen behind the wheel of that car. This is going to open the door for
Car is back on track. Yellow flags will be removed soon. Car is back on track. Yellow flags removed at T16.
Words from Eduardo Freitas there. That will open the door, though, for the Project 1 Porsche, who was only about a minute behind, so that'll allow him to close the gap. Looks like the number 10 car tried to make it back out onto the pit lane, but now has been brought back into the box, into the. Let's go down to Louise and find out what's going on.
Hi Ben, we've just seen the 10 Dragon Speed back in the box. Can you give us an update on what's going on?
Yeah, that's kind of the problem. We've tried to replace everything that we can to do with the electronics, and in regards it's giving us bad gear shifts, so ultimately damaging the gearbox if we do any long runs at the moment. So we've been trying to fix it, but you know, we've replaced everything we can, and we're still getting issues. So we're not quite sure where to go from here, because, like I said, we've replaced loads of stuff on the car, and the guys have done a great job in doing everything as quickly as possible, but it just seems to be never ending. So yeah, it's not looking so good at the moment, because we're not really sure where to go from here, because we've replaced a lot of things already, like I said.
Thanks very much. I can see the atmosphere in the garage is not great. They look quite exhausted from everything they've been doing in that number 10.
I think so as well, Louise. Their sister other side of the garage, on their LMP2 side, their team manager has been requested to go to the clerk of the course as well. And so for something that we're not sure exactly what it is, as now there is a little bit of work around about the brake blanking area on the Jackie Chan DC racing car, which is in 3rd place in the pits, just dropped to 4th as Riquelme is getting out and Aubry is in. They're on their way again. They've just been overtaken by that Dragon Speed car as they've been in the pits. So Dragon Speed up into 3rd again, with Gonzalez at the wheel, team manager at the race directors.
So changing the brake blanking on the brakes there, we go into the cool of the night. The carbon brakes obviously only work within a range of temperature.
A very hot range of temperature.
Very hot range, yeah. And so they would have been increasing the brake blanking to reduce the amount of air going to the brakes so that they run a little bit hotter at night.
And you can see those brakes glow. It's absolutely fascinating to see in the night. That's another one of those unique things about endurance racing that you get to see that you don't get to see in other forms of racing. The brake disc just glowing red inside the wheel.
We did see Sebastian. We slightly missed it. We were talking about something else, but we saw him cutting the first chicane. He missed the right-handed part, but he has closed up to Mike Conway. Actually, he's only half a second behind now, as you can see on the TV.
0.6 of a second to be exact, 678, 0.678 of a second as they head towards the first chicane. Here comes the number 26, our leader, Jean-Eric Verne. Looks like a driver change for this car. And behind him comes in the 26. These two cars have been Nicolas Lapierre coming in the 26 car. These two cars have been locked together for the entire 8 hours so far, 8.5 hours. See who can get out first.
Tear-offs were taken off the windscreen and the lights. Give the driver a clear view.
The G-Drive is away first, but no driver change, so that's going to close the gap a lot as a much quicker stop for the Signatech Alpine.
Yeah, it is a quicker stop as they go out the pits. We'll just see in a second exactly what the difference was.
9 seconds.
9 seconds.
Yeah.
Wow.
That is huge. Talking about quick, Gustavo Menezes, you mentioned it just a little while ago, Jamie, that he's quick on a 320. Well, he's now dropped down into 318.720 as you see the squeeze and the limbo that the G-Drive guys have to do to allow the other car into the pit area.
That is 2 close calls that we've seen
for those cars.
For those 2 cars. The first time it was the right front tire changer who it almost looked like the 26 car had nicked the spare nut, the lug nut on his belt, but in fact in the slow-mo replay you could see it was just because of his body movement, it was flopping around. So word from the pits are that the number 3 Rebellion with Menendez behind the wheel is getting ready for a pit stop.
I'll just give you some idea of the pace this boy is on at the moment. The average for the stint so far for Conway, a 3:22.5. The average for Buemi, basically the same. The average for Vitaly Petrov, 3:24.5. The average for Gustavo Menezes, a 3:20.829.
Wow.
So nearly
That's a
2
good
seconds
stint.
quicker than the Toyota, an average over the stint, and he's done 9 laps. And it looks like the 8s, I mean, wow, this is a bit crowded, to be honest with you. Yeah, Buemi backed out of that massively. He's trying to squeeze through, and he backed out of it completely. Correctly so there, I would have said, Jamie.
Yeah. Got nothing to gain by that right now. Everything to lose, nothing to gain.
I've noticed that quite often, though, whenever there's been a 50-50, they've backed out of it. Oh, big slide. Proves they're still pushing.
Yeah.
Well, no point being there if you don't, Jamie. It really is it is a race after all, isn't it? It's good to see, though. That was Mike Conway getting the right foot down. Still proving that they've got more power than grip.
You see now, once the hybrid's worn away, he tucks in and he just creeps by.
Yeah.
Yep.
Setting up now for the first chicane. The Forza chicane comes over to the left a little bit, then goes right, hits the apex, and then heads out. Another about a kilometer run down to the second chicane.
Just a little update as we see the LMP1 battle and where it's all leading to at the moment, but there's only one car that's officially retired from this race so far. We're 8 hours in, and that is the Corvette. The big crash with Marcel Fessler, as we know and we saw earlier on in the Porsche curves. Misunderstanding with a slower GT car, and the only other car that sort of stopped that's struggling quite heavily is the 98 Aston Martin, which has been in and out, and also the Dragon Speed 10. So I think there's probably more fully retirements coming, but at this stage, I tell you, they're hanging on
Pretty
and
well,
working.
yeah.
Yeah, very well.
Here's the 3 car in the pits, as Louise predicted.
The 88 car actually didn't. I think he's decided to stop now, and you have to have a minimum driving time from the bronze.
Yes.
Yes.
So probably haven't retired the car yet, but they're not
on their
going
way
to go back out.
Saw Gustavo Menezes there. His in-lap coming into the pits, including, was the same lap time as Conway's last flying lap, and 1 second quicker than Buemi. So I tell you, the Rebellion is reveling, or Menezes is reveling, or he's found a shortcut or something or other with the conditions at the moment.
Yeah, that car likes the cooler conditions.
Yeah, he was challenging right from the start. Louise is just reminding us. He also, Gustavo Menezes, that car's been in the wars as well, because one of the other drivers had a bit of a shunt coming down into the second chicane. But it's all repaired and back on track right now. And all they can do
Thomas
is
Loren was the driver.
Exactly, sorry, yeah. All they can do right now is just push, push, push. They've got nothing to lose and everything to gain from it.
It's a recovery drive. Their goal is to just try and catch the next car in front of them. And in this case, it's Vitaly Petrov in the number 11 SMP Racing AER. And he's got to make up a couple of laps. Not impossible with 15 hours and 20 minutes to go.
You used to find, Alan, at night, you would, just looking at Gustavo performance at the moment, you would just find suddenly you would just go out and feel good, and like, I don't know, everything just went your way for some reason. You'd have some stints where you were just like on fire, and you would just be, the traffic became an insignificant thing to you. You would just seem to find little spots to do them, and you were just driving well and feeling good about yourself and confident with the car, and that's something that's obviously happened to him.
This is the 66 being overtaken, 66 Ford.
He's 10th in class. Olivier Pla behind the wheel of that car.
And I think it's just been overtaken by Muller in the Porsche.
Okay.
So he's now 11th in class. Little clarification from Louise Beckett down in the pit lane. The garage door is actually down on the 98, which
normally
says
means
that it's,
the paperwork's on its way.
Paperwork's on its way to official retirement.
Here comes the 66 car now.
Oh, any defense.
Ooh.
Quite late as well.
Oh, touched. They touched and the 66 is off.
66 is off.
Olivier Pla.
I don't think there'd be much damage there. It was a small glancing blow, but he was in yaw as he was turning into the corner, which just spun him around.
Was that Pile that he was, or the 94?
I think it's Muller.
No, it was Muller in the 94. Yeah. That's right.
Here we go. He's down the inside, and then the Porsche just comes in, and the Porsche cuts the corner as well because of it. I didn't see that the first time around.
Yeah.
The Porsche just aborts the apex.
Here we go. There. He kind of.
Yeah. I've got to say, Olivier didn't hit the apex. It wasn't as if he was turning in. He was going to struggle to make the second one. So I would, my personal opinion, I would have said, look, it's a bit of 50-50 there, boys.
I think
what about you, Jamie?
The Porsche gave him room on the outside, and he was going to make, the Porsche was going to make the right-hander.
Right, that's exactly right.
Olivier's contact with him.
Olivier used him as a brake, basically. So he's back underway.
2.5 second gap now. Conway slightly eked away a little bit. Only 4 seconds between the two LMP2 leaders. And 5 seconds between the GT Pro. Wow.
Yeah, exactly.
After 8
hours.
9 hours running, yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, I certainly don't in any way fancy myself a race car driver. In the 80s, I was lucky enough to do some rallying, and I found at night I was more comfortable. And maybe it's because I could focus, because there weren't the, I could see what I could see, and I could drive to that, as opposed to...
Fox, Ollie, Fox, hit confirm, please. Yeah, Fox, I had a contact on the Conway. Copy.
That's Graham Taylor, one of my old engineers, who is Olivier Pla's engineer. The voice, very clear, very direct, and Pla now pitting I think there's a little bit of damage as well, because I saw some bodywork flying off. I didn't know if it was from the Porsche or whether it was from the Ford, but it flew off anyway.
But yeah, I found that I could focus better at night. Maybe my imagination I wasn't distracted by what was out there.
You get into a zone, don't you? You get into a sort of rhythm. I used to love driving at night, whether it be at Le Mans or at Spa 24 or Nordschleife. It was, I always used to absolutely love it.
There is the 66 car. It has made its way into the pits. Look for damage.
I think his headlight's missing, is it?
Yeah, no, that's just
the top one.
Oh yeah,
right.
Yep.
Well,
Yep. Yeah, it is. The plexi piece is missing.
Gone. He's also got a hole this side.
Yeah.
Yeah. Punched the hole.
Lots of dings and bangs there.
Yeah, the more I see it, the more.
Yeah.
Although
I think it was ambitious. I think it was a little ambitious.
Yeah, he wasn't going to make it.
Yeah. No. Yeah, he was going to go straight off.
The Toyota also in avoiding action as well, going off on the escape road to the right-hand side.
On board, the number 94 now live.
Which driver was that? Oliver Flash. Ollie Flash. Just keep your head down, mate. Stay calm and don't worry about it.
Good words by the engineer there, actually, giving the information, but then also taking away the option of a reply.
Get on with it.
Yeah, exactly.
And that incident's under investigation as well, and not surprisingly so.
Well, let's see what kind of decision we get, however, because we have seen a couple decisions here so far that were a little bit of head scratchers.
Well, Marcel's one, I saw the penalty applied. What was it, €7,000 fine for Marcel? That's
Marcel Fessler in the Corvette.
Yeah. I slightly disagree with that, to be honest. I thought it was the other way around.
Yeah, I think it's always, the view is that the car behind the overtaking car has got a responsibility.
But the contact was front left with rear right. So he was...
Yeah, he was past him.
A good portion of the car.
There's no question he was.
And he had the inside line. So
if you're playing devil's advocate, you would say that the Porsche can't disappear in a very quick left-hander like that.
Yeah,
that's valid.
I think it's a really tricky thing as well, and that's why one of the reasons that the stewards have a driver advisor, and the driver advisor here is Yannick Dalmas, who's won this race 4 times. He was one of my teammates, actually, as the second place Bohemi car into the pits, and because it tries to give a bit of a reference and experience and things. However, that's not to say they always get it right. And they certainly won't get it right if you've been penalised because you disagree with the penalty. But it's a tough thing. We saw that in Formula 1 just at the last Grand Prix weekend as well, where depending on which side of the penalty you're sitting, whether you believe it's the right thing or not. Louise has just been talking in our ears about someone else doing some pretty stunning lap times. We were talking about Gustavo Menezes but Nick de Vries, another quick youngster who, if anybody that follows F2 knows that he's been fighting at the front of the Formula 2 Championship this year. And as we see the 17 bouncing through the Ford chicane, this is the 3rd place with Stefan Sarazan at the wheel. And de Vries has been, well, basically he's about 1.5 to 2 seconds quicker than anybody else at this moment in time. That's in a Dallara and Michelin tyres. And that's been a quick car. You know, we saw it with Guido van de Garde early on in the race. He was 4th at the end of the first lap. I had a bet with him that he couldn't make it to 3rd. And so I think that was a reason that Guido was actually giving it one on the first lap. But it's quick, but de Vries is pedaling it very, very quickly.
That's the number 29 Racing Team Netherlands car, 17th position in LMP2.
Collado and Christensen battle for 1st and 2nd place in GT Pro. Very close at the moment. 0.7 of a second splitting the two of them. On board with Bruno through the Porsche. Here's karting corner coming up.
Jan Magnussen is now in 4th position. Harry Dinknell is in 3rd. So we've got Porsche, Ferrari, Ford, Corvette in the top 4, and only 12 seconds separate them.
Big difference in tyre strategy. Remember that Christensen on a used tyre, Tinknell's on a used tyre. Their gap is staying very static. However, Collado, they stuck on a new tyre, and he's pulled in 10 seconds, give or take, on Christensen. And so therefore, I think this is going to be one of those ones that swings back and forward, depending on which tyre they're on. They've got to double stint. That's going to be a bit of a headache for some of the cars as they go through the night. It's being able to double stint to keep fresh tyres for the end of the race. And all these GT Pro cars are looking at the end of the race because they know they've got to be in the fight in the last 4 hours. And then after that, it is gloves off, and they'll be going at it. 2 years ago, it was decided in the second last lap who was going to win the 24 Hours of Le Mans.
They need a new set for the last 2 stints, don't they?
Oh, yeah. Well, 2 plus.
2 plus.
And they get 13 sets. 15
sets total. So if you spin or have a lock-up or trip through the gravel, you know, you're compromising the end of the race. It might not be a problem now, but in another 14 hours, it could be a big issue. It's the 17 Sarrazin car in the pits. So a nice slow-mo of it as it went through the chicane. Bit slow actually to get started. That's one big advantage with the hybrid systems.
Yes.
Because you can, an electric engine starts instantly and it's got instant torque, and so you accelerate out of the box on the electric engine, and once the car is moving at 60 kilometers per hour on the speed lane limiter, you activate the internal combustion engine. Whereas it was probably about a second there for the internal combustion engine to start up in the SMP.
We also talked about that earlier, but it's not just the cranking of the engine in the starting. It's the whole clutch procedure, and then also that acceleration from 0 to 60.
Yeah.
So we think it's like 2.5 seconds they lose every stop.
It's not quite 2.5 on the first part of it, but it's a fair old chunk to get up there. Yeah. And it was an area where originally, because of our systems where we were recuperating through the front axle as well, then we weren't allowed to boost under 100 kilometers per hour, and we lost a lot of time in the pits because of that, whereas the Toyota could. And so therefore there's quite a lot of strategy behind it. Hidden benefits, shall we put it that way? Hidden benefits, but we like the hidden benefits because that gives you the unfair advantage. And God, there's nothing a driver likes more than an unfair advantage.
But let's be conservative here and say it's a second and a half a lap times 12, or a pit stop, times 12 pit stops. You know, that's 18 seconds right there.
Yeah, but then
so far. I mean,
it's also then the risk you take to gain that time back on the track. And so therefore your risk assessment, it's the cheapest and easiest and safest form of time is time gained in the pits.
Yep.
But these two guys are going to have to do it on the circuit. Christensen leading, and Collado has caught up. Collado on a fresher set of tires than Christensen.
Right now they've got a prototype between them. Looks like that's one of the LMP2 cars. He has cleared this battle. Here comes another one, however. But Collado is now right on the tailpipes. That was the 94 Porsche that had the valance, front valance change. Another front valance change. This one for the 93.
Yeah, we see that.
I wonder if it's a light.
No, I don't think it is. I think it's basically a balance shift, and it's also it's the same as what the Toyota does with changing the nose as well. There's a few things. One, when they get very dirty, they lose their aerodynamic efficiency.
Oh, I love that sound.
You're old school, Jim.
Yes, I'm old. I did for 35 years, my dear. I did for 35 years.
Yeah, Louise Beckett got her earplugs in when that car fires up and leaves the pit lane. Us in the pit box here at the Ford Chicane love the noise as they blast past.
Well, we didn't see it, but James Collado has made short work of Michael Christensen. He looked like he had a great run on him coming out of Tête Rouge, and in fact, he did get him before he got to the first chicane. And now it looks like he's pulling out a bit of a lead. Half a second already. Here comes the number 7 car into the pits. Mike Conway will stay in. This will just be fuel only. Checking the brakes, cleaning off the light panel. They've already cleaned the windshield and the lights, and off he goes.
Whoa, look at that go.
Isn't that something? Quick as a bunny with a beagle on its tail.
So the 8 car coming up towards the last chicane, the Ford chicane. We just saw the 7 car leaving. There he is at the end of the pit box now as the 8 car comes out of the chicane. So a pit straight difference.
Yep. That is, that's a gain, because the last time he came out, he was right on his tailpipe.
That's right.
In fact, hadn't there not been traffic, we might have seen, probably wouldn't have seen it, but we could have talked about it like it was going to be exciting. Bruno Senna has also made a pit stop in the number 1 Rebellion. So it's Noah's Ark in LMP1, 2x2, Toyota Gazoo Racing, Mike Conway and Sebastian Buemi, 1st and 2nd. SMP Racing, AER, Sarazan and Petrov, 3rd and 4th. And then Rebellion Racing, Menendez and Senna, Bruno Senna, 5th and 6th.
Gustavo Menezes is still pumping in the lap times. Quickest LMP1 car every single lap.
Yeah.
3:22.4 this lap. Next best is Buemi in a 23.9. Some 1.5 seconds quicker.
It's kind of a classic recovery drive. You just put your head down and run her till she breaks.
2010, back in my day, in 2010, we were lying in 3rd and had an incident.
Are there any other people I have to take care of? Because no one has told me anything about other people. Are there other people coming fast or not? I mean, you have to take care, obviously, of the quicker cars, but no, not the others. It's not the GT cars. Yeah, I kind of learn a little bit how I drive. That's why I'm asking. Yeah, we'll speak to them. We'll speak to them. We're good now. We're all good. He'll be 2 laps earlier than us with full tanks, so we should repass him.
Yes, he is. He's talking about 2 laps earlier. It's the Collado car ahead is going to stop 2 laps before theirs. That's been on the last couple of stops as well.
Was he complaining, Alan, because he didn't know Collado was going to come by?
I think it was. I got the impression it was actually other cars. You know, what else was around in traffic coming up?
Ah, like LMP2 cars.
Yeah, can they give them a bit of advice of what is coming?
Yeah, what's coming? Yeah. Yeah, what can I be aware of?
He's obviously been affected by some traffic somewhere, and he wants a bit of pre-warning.
Support.
Yeah. I think he was also, was he not asking about his performance in comparison?
He was as well, yes, to make sure that Tinknell wasn't catching behind, but that gap's kind of stayed the same at 10 seconds.
I spoke about this earlier. When you're in your car, you're doing a lap time, which you're going as fast as you can go, or you should be, but you don't know what the other, you don't really know. So it's just good, you occasionally from your engineer, just pace is good, mate. You're doing a great job.
Right.
Everyone around you doing 51s, you're doing 50.9. Happy days.
Yeah.
You know, or everyone around you is doing half a second quicker, or whatever it is, whether it's good or bad.
Get the lead out.
Just so you know, I don't know why, but for some reason drivers can sometimes they can find a little bit more if they suddenly hear they're slow.
See, you know, everybody would think you guys just want your bellies rubbed, you know, but.
No, to be fair, he's pushing as hard as he can.
Oh, he certainly is, and he hasn't lost anything.
No.
It's what is it now? It's 0.6 of a second. It's less than that, I bet you, when they hit the next timing line, because he is about as close as he's going to get without. Well, he's pulled out. He's lost a little bit on the straightaway. Surprised the Ferrari can pull him under power, but.
The one place Gustavo Menezes is making up that lap time is in Sector 1, interestingly.
The LMP1 non-hybrids have always been quicker in Sector 1. It's the boosting of the hybrid energy in Sectors 2 and 3 is where they make their time.
Yeah.
Also remember the LMP1 non-hybrids as well. The SMP Rebellions are lighter, and the agility going through Dunlop down the hill. If you remember, when we used to pump the fuel out, suddenly you would gain so much time down the hill just because of the weight effect. Here we see, that's why he was going so slowly. Tereshchenko losing it coming in. Oh, crikey. Heavily into the floor there, just with bouncing across the runoff area in the Ford chicane.
That can't be good for the right side suspension.
Right, it's more, I think, for the floor, because it separates the floor and the bodywork. You get so much dirt wedged in there.